it's Anna here. Welcome back to my channel. Today is video 7 of my Inner Work video series, and we will be discussing the realities of healing whilst parenting. And it's a topic I felt was very important to bring to the table, as obviously you are all parents, but also because I haven't come across anyone discussing this in particular. So in everything I've read and everyone I've followed, a lot of people are obviously discussing the fact that healing is hard and challenging, but I haven't come across anyone discussing the fact that it's extra challenging when you're also parenting on top of it. And the reality is that often you don't start your healing journey until you have children, because you don't realize that you have any healing to do. You know, your children have this capacity to trigger those wounds inside of you, and everything comes up to the surface, and that's only when you realize that, okay, you need to do some work on yourself. So it's not as if you can do that work before. I mean, I know that for me it only started after I've had children, but I do find it very strange that not more people are talking about it, and I think it's actually a very important subject to discuss. And when I'm talking about the healing journey, I'm talking about the really deep and unsexy work. I'm not talking about bettering yourself here and there. I'm really talking about diving deep into your shadow. This is what I've been talking about this entire series. I've divided this video into 2 parts. First, we will discuss why healing is extra tough when you're parenting, and then we will discuss some strategies that have really helped me to make it through without going completely insane. So let's start with discussing why healing is extra challenging whilst parenting. So I mean, healing is challenging at the best of times. It is very much, in my experience, a grieving process, because true healing comes with change. If you are truly healing and doing the deep work, you will see a lot of change in your external world. And it will be about shedding a lot of relationships, shedding older versions of yourself. And in general, the healing journey is very challenging because it requires being brutally honest with ourselves and feeling those uncomfortable feelings that we haven't been willing to feel for a long time and that we have pushed down. And there is naturally a lot of resistance to the whole process and a tendency to want to speed up the process, to make it go faster. Because a lot of change comes up, it also creates a lot of fear around not wanting to see that change eventuate. And all of this exacerbates the feeling of uncomfortableness. It is very challenging. But when you are going through all of that, and on top of that also parenting little children, you can imagine how difficult that is. And in my experience, there are 2 things that I've especially noticed that were very challenging in the last year when I've gone really deep into this healing work. So the first thing that I've noticed in my experience is that when something needs to come up in terms of healing, it needs to come up. It's not as if you can park it for later. And what I mean by that is that, the healing process should be like a flowing process where like a trigger or an old emotion comes up, and you need to process it, you need to feel it, you need to reflect on it, and it needs to happen right there and then. But when you have children, you can see how that really doesn't happen that way, especially when they are little children. So something will come up, and then you have your children fighting in the other room that you need to attend to, or you have your child who wants something. So you have dependence. It's not as if you can just go and do your thing and process everything that you need to process. It just doesn't happen that way. It's so messy. And basically what happens is that you end up interrupting a very important healing process, and it leaves you feeling really scattered and frustrated. And when you end up picking it up later, it's extra challenging to bring it up and process it and feel it, because often you lose your train of thought of what came up. You don't really remember it because you were completely interrupted. So basically, the healing process ends up being extra long and extra challenging and constantly interrupted. And obviously, it's still possible to do, and it's still very important to do. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is so that you are aware of it. You're aware that it's completely normal. You're also parenting, you have dependence, and this is an invitation to be extra kind to yourself. And in my opinion, people who have the luxury to do the inner work without any dependence around are so privileged. And the second thing that I've noticed in my experience with healing is that when you go through a deep healing process, you go through what a lot of people call hermit mode. And it's exactly what happened to me. I really had this deep craving for personal space. I wanted to completely isolate myself. And another thing as well is that I became really sensitive to noise. And as you can imagine, I've got 3 children. They are 8 years old, 6 years old, and 3 years old. So my house is quite noisy and I don't get a lot of personal space. So all of this to say that honestly, to be completely honest, some days were completely insane in the last year, and I actually felt on some days that I was in a mental asylum. And obviously I had a lot to do with it because of my process, but it's something you need to be aware of. And you need to know that it's a process, it's normal, and you're not doing anything wrong. So this is also an invitation to be kinder to yourself. So now I want to give you some strategies that have really helped me to not go completely insane, and also to make it easier on my kids as well, because it's not their fault. So the first thing that really helped me is simply acceptance. Accepting that I'm not the problem. This is the process that I'm going through, and it's completely normal to feel this way. And this is where it was really challenging for me, because I didn't come across anyone that was talking about the fact that it was extra challenging whilst having kids. No one was talking about this, and this is why I want to bring it up today. When you understand that, when you accept that this is the process you're going through and this is not you, you're not doing anything wrong, it really frees you. It opens up, it releases the resistance that you have to the whole process to begin with. And this acceptance gives you so much more compassion for yourself and so much more grace for the whole process. And that really helped me, because one thing that I've noticed is that with healing, if you are shaming yourself or feeling guilty or overall feeling negative about yourself, it really it draws out the process so much more, because you are basically shooting in the foot in the process. The healing process requires, yes, a lot of brutal honesty about yourself and what you need to do to heal, but it also equally requires a lot of compassion for yourself. Another thing that really, really helped me is to spend time in nature. So that's for my kids, obviously, because I was very sensitive to noise, as I mentioned. So spending a lot of time outdoors really helped, because they could run around, scream whatever they wanted. It didn't affect me as much. So that was one of the strategies that I used. But also, nature is so healing. Spending time in nature, especially barefoot on the grass or in the sand, it's incredible how healing this is. And this is something that has really, really helped me in this whole process. Another thing as well is spending alone time. So obviously we don't all have the luxury of doing that. Trying to be creative, to try to find some time to be alone, even if it's just in the evening when your kids are in bed, putting them in bed a bit earlier so you do have that alone time. You need that time to reflect. You need that time to feel the things that you need to feel. You will need to have that alone time, completely alone. Not seeing anyone, to be able to process all of that. Another thing that's really helped me is laughter. And, it's counterintuitive, I guess. When you are going through a deep healing process, you probably don't feel like laughing a lot, but this is something that always saves me. When I go through challenging phases, I always tend to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. So I invite you to do that as well, because laughter is medicine. I really believe that. Whether it's watching a comedy movie or stand-up comedy videos on YouTube, or even memes. Some memes are just so funny because they are so true, and they remind you of how ridiculous your life is right now when you are going through this process. And trying to laugh with your kids as much as possible. I know it's hard, it's so hard during these times, but it is also so needed. I think when we go through this deep healing process, we tend to forget what laughter is. And even if it's just laughing once a day, it really makes a difference. And last but not least, extra sleep. This whole process of deep healing is so exhausting, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. You do need that extra rest. And I used to go to bed really early, like some nights I was in bed at 8:30 like a nana. And it really helped me. It was required. I really needed that. So these are the strategies that help me. They're so simple, they're all free. And you know, in my opinion and in my experience, and this is something I've mentioned before, all the best things in life are free. And it's all about simplifying your life and making room for that deep healing process. And if you do all of these things, you will really see a difference in how you're able to handle it and not go completely insane in the process. And to end this video, I just simply want to say that honestly, if you are intentionally healing yourself whilst also parenting little kids, I really want to commend you. Because, you know, not a lot of people are doing the inner work, and not a lot of people are doing it whilst also parenting, and there's a reason for that. It's because honestly, it's really fucked some days. So the fact you are doing it is amazing. You deserve a medal. And, you know, it's amazing that you are doing it because it's required. And I promise you, when you get to the other side of that deep healing work, you won't recognize yourself. You will, the way you will feel internally will be so different. Your relationships will change. You won't feel as triggered about anything. You will feel more at peace. You will feel more empowered, have more strength, more compassion. You will feel more free and more expanded. Like the way I feel now is amazing. And that's why I've done this inner work series, because I feel that maybe with my experience, I can share, you know, what's worked for me and what hasn't worked and help you in the process. So I hope you find this video helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.